Welcome to today's edition of the Statler Financial Radio Show. Your financial security is our business. Have a question for the team? Call today, 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188.
All the volatility that we've seen lately could mean big opportunities that you don't want to miss. Today on the Statler Financial Radio Show, Phillip Statler of Statler Financial Services will share savvy investors that can turn uncertainty into an advantage and why the right guidance could be the key to making it happen. Phillip, welcome to the show. Let's dive in really quick as we dive into this topic here. You know, we've seen the ups and the downs lately. There's a lot of uncertainty. So from your standpoint, Phillip, what questions are you getting from people who haven't been working with an advisor?
Hey, I'm doing well. I think probably, Danielle, the biggest question I get is, are we going to go into a recession? Are we, how long is this going to last? And do I need to be concerned? And because one of the things they always tell me is, we've never seen this before. Which I kind of chuckle because every time we've had a major bear market, that's exactly what people said. We've never seen this before. It's never happened like this before. I mean, I can go back to the first bear market that in my career I had to ride through, which was 2000, right? The dot-com bubble. That had never happened before, but yet we bounced back. Then we had 9/11. Never happened before, but it happened, and so we bounced back. Then you had the financial crisis in 2008. Yes, in each of those cases, we had down markets for a period of time, but ultimately we got back to where we were, and we even got into a better situation. And so, it's having that mindset of knowing that, yes, this time is different, but it's still the same in terms of fundamentals and those type of things we look at, Danielle.
And Phillip, with the markets being very unpredictable, I know a lot of people have questions. So how could those nearing retirement see this as an opportunity?
Well, that's a good question because, it's hard to see opportunity in the volatility that we see in the marketplace. But right now, if folks are, especially if they're sitting on the sideline and we've seen this decline in the marketplace, or you've been sitting in your 401k and you're sitting in the stable value fund, then this could be an opportunity to take advantage of some of these down markets. And, it's one of those things that I try to and really impress upon people is that, diversification is more than just that nice looking pie chart you see on everybody's reports. Diversification really starts with making sure that you have that first diversification right, and that is diversifying between safety and risk and making sure you have that one right first. If you've got that one right first, then the pie chart will take care of itself over time. And so that's really what I tell people. Like, we need to look at that, and that way we can move out some of that unpredictability within your portfolio.
And as we're talking about this hot topic with markets, I know a lot of people are curious, how do you help clients spot these opportunities, especially in a volatile market?
It's about looking and watching and keeping track of where we are. And a lot of it, and we'll talk about this a little later, is just making sure that people stay engaged and understand what the markets are doing. All this volatility really does press upon folks that, one of the key reasons that I developed the core retirement design was to help people get through this, all this stuff of volatility and risk and those type of things. And our core retirement design really looks at three main focuses. It looks at the risk that we're talking about right now in terms of what the market is doing. It also looks at taxes. How can I pay the least amount of taxes possible in my current situation? And then lastly is making sure we have income. Income is the bread and butter when it comes to retirement. We want to make sure that our income is going to last as long as we are. And so, we don't want to pass away and be out of money before we do that. So that's one of the things we really look at. To schedule your core retirement analysis, give us a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188.
That's right, Phillip. These are really good strategies to keep in mind here. What if someone isn't sure if their plan is set up to make the most of a tough market? Where's a good place would you recommend to start looking for some opportunities?
Well, I think one is, now because of the volatility is a great time to look at a second opinion. Make sure that the way you have things allocated is in your best interest right now. And so I would encourage you to make sure that your investments are working for you, even though the markets are a little tough right now, and just see what opportunities may be out there. And it means taking some time, looking at the plan, making sure the plan still makes sense and is still going to work for you in retirement.
And Phillip, long-term thinking is important, right? So what's your advice to those who need to look, let's say, beyond today's market and really start focusing on that long term?
And that's where we do need to be, Danielle. We need to be focused on the long term, because that is, when we look at the markets, it's a long term. It's not a 6-month deal. It's not a year deal. It's a long-term deal to help keep up with inflation and those type of things. And so, we want to make sure that you have a plan in place that encompasses that makes that part of the plan a long-term strategy, not something that you're going to need to dip into next week or next month going forward. We want to make sure that we've got a good allocation there for our income part of the portfolio. That's important, because if we don't have to take money out when the market's down, it gives us time for it to rebound, which is what we ultimately want to do. The truth is, Danielle, that times like these aren't just about weathering the storm. They're about finding opportunities. And here at Statler Financial, we focus on helping people use market shifts like these to help strengthen their financial future. And here's really our approach. We want to evaluate your current plan, uncover any hidden opportunities for growth that may be out there. We want to make sure that you're implementing strategies to take advantage of these market dips while managing the risks that are involved. Help kind of tailor your investments to align with your long-term goals, and so the fluctuating markets don't really derail your future, and make sure everything lines up with the amount of risk that should be in your current portfolio. And most importantly, focus on preserving your wealth and helping secure your retirement plans. You worked hard to build your assets. Don't miss the chance to capitalize on today's market potential. Give us a call at 863-877-1188 for your no-obligation financial review. Every day you wait could mean missed opportunities to grow and preserve your wealth. Take control of your retirement plan today. Remember, having a strategy that adapts to uncertainty can help you turn potential risk into lasting rewards. But without a clear plan, you might be leaving money on the table. With the right guidance, you can focus on what really matters most, helping build that secure future for yourself and your loved ones. Give us a call today, 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188 to schedule your core retirement analysis.
There's no cost, there's no obligation. This is your opportunity to talk with Phillip Statler and the team at Statler Financial Services. Don't miss out on the chance to help make an uncertain market work for you. Call that number today. That number again is 863-877-1188, 863-877-1188. It's time to take that step toward building that financial confidence that you deserve. But hey, stick around. We are just getting started here on the show. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Turn your plans of yesterday into yes today. Don't wait another day for a routine checkup of your retirement plans. Call Statler Financial Services, 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
Surprise parties can be fun.
Surprise!
Financial surprises? Not so much, especially when you're retired, like finding out you owe more in taxes than you thought you would, or having to go back to work to make ends meet. Maybe you'll be okay, but why not double check just to be sure? Call Phillip Statler at Statler Financial Services and schedule a no-cost retirement double check at 863-877-1188. Phillip and his team have seen their fair share of surprises over the years and know how to help you avoid them. Call 863-877-1188 to schedule your no-cost retirement double check with Phillip Statler at Statler Financial Services. Don't let a financial surprise derail your retirement dreams. Call 863-877-1188 now. That's 863-877-1188. You can also visit statlerfinancial.com for more info. Advisory services are offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor.
Who likes uncertainty? Wall Street certainly doesn't. With fears of a potential recession and partisan politics, there's a lot of uncertainty right now. What will your future look like? Will your taxes go up? Will your savings go down? Here in the Sebring area, financial advisor Phillip Statler and the team at Statler Financial Services have seen uncertainty come and go. Phillip can help you create a plan designed to preserve your finances in uncertain times. And it's not a matter of if those uncertain times will show up, but when. Call 863-877-1188 now to meet with Phillip Statler and the team at Statler Financial Services. Call 863-877-1188 and schedule your visit today. 863-877-1188. Advisory services offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, a SEC registered investment advisor. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Time to retire right. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Statler Financial Radio Show. I'm your host, Danielle J. Martin, along with Phillip Statler. He's the president and founder of Statler Financial Services. Now we're talking about what it looks like creating a 5-star retirement plan. Well, picture a 5-star luxury resort. You have lush greenery, you have scenic views, and top-notch customer service. Now picture a run-of-the-mill roadside motel. Are you going into that? It's a roadside motel, probably is not going to be able to achieve that 5-star rating because I'm sure you know something is missing. Well, look at it like this. If you could rate your retirement plan, how many stars would you give it? So, Phillip, let's take this a step further. We're trying to see how ready we are for retirement. And I love this analogy of how can we make sure that our plans have a 5-star rating? What does that look like?
Well, I think that when we look at that, we have to look at 5 main points that I believe that you need to have to achieve that 5-star rating, right? We need to have a reliable income plan that is consistent and conservative. We need to have a wealth management strategy. We need to have a tax efficiency strategy. We want to be tax efficient in retirement. We need to have a plan to address healthcare. And then lastly, an estate planning strategy. What does that look like for you? And I know, I call them stars, but in reality, they're just 5 key components of having a great comprehensive retirement plan, Danielle.
And I love that you listed all of them out for us, Phillip. And what I would love for us to do is you make this sound easy every time. So what is the first step when we're talking about building this overall 5-star, but like you mentioned, it's components to an overall comprehensive retirement plan? What is the first step for building a reliable income plan?
Well, I guess you would start with how much income are you going to need, right? In retirement, what does that look like? And I think that there's some misconceptions here because a lot of folks have come to believe that, well, I only need half my income, or I only need, 70% of my income because I'm not going to pay as much in taxes and blah, 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 right? I mean, that's the thinking a lot of people have. And what we are actually finding is that, we really need to come somewhere greater than that number, somewhere probably between 70 and 100% of your current income. And that's really if you're debt free. If you're not debt free, then we definitely need to probably 100%, right? So So that's kind of the first thing is how much do we need? And that comes down to what are we going to spend? So we have to kind of put together that budgetary item and determine what our spending is going to look like in retirement. And then from there, we can build the income. Where's it going to come from? How are we going to get it? Where's it going to rest? I use a bucket system where we bucket out money. We got this bucket for a certain period of time, and we've got 4 or 5, maybe 6 buckets of money that we're using to create that income over your lifetime. And so it's just having that process in place to be able to work through it.
Phillip, you brought up a good point of making sure we have enough money to last us as long as we live. So what are some of the tools for generating some income in retirement?
Well, I think when we look at tools, there are obviously bank accounts. I mean, we've got Social Security, whether you call that a tool or not. I think it is to the standpoint of when do you take it? You can minimize it or maximize it, right? And that becomes part of the process and the tool part of Social Security. There are things like annuities that were created specifically to help generate income. Now, when we talk about annuities, there's, obviously you draw a little T account, Ben Franklin, and there's positive and negatives, right? So you have to weigh those out to make sure it's going to work the way you want it to. And it's going to add value to your income planning process. A lot of people, they have their portfolios. They have dividend stocks. Some people are just using CDs right now because interest rates are so high. So there's all kinds of tools out there. Some people have rental property, right, that are paid for, and that's generating a lot of income for them. So there's a lot of tools out there. You just got to know how to put those tools to work in your current circumstances. And again, that comes back to the process of why I developed the Core Retirement Design. The Core Retirement Design looks at 3 key components. It looks at risk in your portfolio, and it measures that. It looks at taxes, not just today, but taxes down the road and what that's going to look like to you in your retirement. And lastly, an income plan. Having that income plan in place so that you are confident in the retirement income that you're going to get month in and month out. The Core Retirement Design. Folks, give us a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188 to schedule your core retirement analysis. Again, that number is 863-877-1188.
Phillip and his team have been doing this for many years, so they have experience in the questions that you have. They have answers to them, so there's no cost or obligation. All you have to do is give him and his team a call at 863-877-1188. Again, that number is 863-877-1188. Phillip, can you talk about what is the difference between an income plan and a wealth management strategy?
Well, an income plan, Danielle, is setting up streams of income. A wealth management strategy is where do we put those, right? How do we get them? What is a strategy? And I look at more as a risk strategy because when we head into retirement, we cannot afford another bear market like we saw in 2000 and 2008 to wipe out everything that we've worked hard for. And so, we saw a lot of people that their 401ks were cut in half during those bear markets. And if you are getting close to retirement, that's something you cannot afford. And so we look at first diversification. We look at 2 types of diversification. The first type is safety versus risk. And folks, you need both buckets. You need both key components. The question is, how much do you put in each one of them? And that's part of the wealth management strategy, is determining how much goes to safety, how much goes to risk. Then the risk bucket, you've got to diversify even further. But that's really the wealth management strategy, is where do we put the assets to create the income that we're going to need in retirement?
Phillip, you mentioned that word assets, and so it kind of leads me to this question of, should retirees still have a portion of their retirement assets invested in the market?
I believe they do. Now, how much is up for debate, right? So I believe that we start with what I call the rule of 100. And the rule of 100 says, I'm going to take your age from 100. So 100 minus your age gives us a net number. If you are 65 years old, try that as 35%. So 35% is what we would be a starting point, not an ending point, but a starting point of what you might want to have invested in the market. Now, we narrow that down more by doing a risk analysis on you to determine what your risk tolerance number is on a scale of 1 to 100. And we use that to massage that number up or down, depending on what that looks like for you. But that's the key point. And I tell people, look, if you're 90 years old, you still need something, maybe 10% in the market, because that's going to help us continue to grow our money no matter what.
And I know many people have questions about this, Phillip. And so it kind of makes me think and wonder, why is it important for our money to keep growing in retirement? Because we don't want it to stop, right? We want our money to last as long as we live. But why is it important for our money to keep growing?
Well, I think, Danielle, if folks think back over the last 3 years, they know why, right? Because inflation, that ugly word, has really become part of our vocabulary, unfortunately, because everything costs so much more now than it did 3 years ago. And so a way to keep up with inflation is to grow our portfolios, to grow our investments to help us through that process of keeping up with inflation. And that's one reason that we look at the stock market, because the stock market historically has helped folks keep up with inflation. And so I know it goes up and down and there's volatility involved, but that's where we have that diversification between risk and safety. And so if we get those allocations done right, then we can handle some of the ups and downs and the volatility that we see in the marketplace. But all this comes to planning. I mean, that's the bottom line, Danielle, is we have to have a plan. And that plan needs to be written so that you know what it is and you can go back to it and look at it and say, okay, yes, I'm on track. I'm okay. And that's why I developed the core retirement design to help people design that retirement they always dreamed of. That's important. You've worked hard to get to where you are, and now you need to be able to enjoy that time in retirement. Give us a call at 863-877-1188 to go through our core retirement analysis. Again, that's 863-877-1188. It starts with a simple phone call. You and I discussing where we are, what you need to do, and how you can prepare for that retirement. Again, give us a call at 863-877-1188.
Now, you don't want to make any financial decisions without fully understanding the full impact on all the other pieces of your retirement plan. So do not hesitate to call Phillip and his team at 863-877-1188 to learn more about the benefits of having a comprehensive retirement strategy. Again, that number is 863-877-1188. Now, again, we were talking about what it looks like planning for that 5-star vacation, because when you plan a vacation, you know how to research flights and hotels and look for all the savings. But how can you do the same thing for your retirement plan? We're going to continue the conversation on what it looks like to create a 5-star retirement plan right after this.
Needing a second opinion on your retirement plan or to see if you're paying more than your fair share to Uncle Sam? Schedule your complimentary visit today. Text VISIT to 863-877-1188. That's VISIT to 863-877-1188.
Surprise parties can be fun. Financial surprises, not so much, especially when you're retired, like finding out you owe more in taxes than you thought you would, or having to go back to work to make ends meet. Maybe you'll be okay, but why not double check just to be sure? Call Phillip Statler at Statler Financial Services and schedule a no-cost retirement double check at 863-877-1188. Phillip and his team have seen their fair share of surprises over the years and know how to help you avoid them. Call 863-877-1188 to schedule your no-cost retirement double check with Phillip Statler at Statler Financial Services. Don't let a financial surprise derail your retirement dreams. Call 863-877-1188 now. That's 863-877-1188. You can also visit StatlerFinancial.com for more info. Advisory services are offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
I want to help you understand some things. Number one, timing of your RMD, because they could potentially push you into a higher tax bracket. Imagine how fast your savings could shrink if you rack up penalties along with taking regular withdrawals and paying taxes.
Time to retire right. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show.
Welcome back into the show. You're listening to the Statler Financial Radio Show. I'm your host, Danielle J. Martin, along with Phillip Statler. He is the president and founder of Statler Financial Services. We're continuing the conversation of what it looks like creating that 5-star retirement plan. Because, when you plan for a vacation, you know how to research the flights and hotels and look at your savings to make sure you have enough, because you want to make sure you get the most bang out of your buck. But the question is, it's also same thing for your retirement plan. Are you doing the exact same thing? It's important to make sure that you are taking the steps to help preserve your retirement savings. So, Phillip, one of the areas where we can really help protect our savings, you mentioned this earlier in the list, is being tax efficient. So can you kind of explain to us the difference between tax planning and tax preparation?
Absolutely, Danielle. So it's really a simple distinction, right? Tax preparation is historic, right? Typically we get to, January, February of the year after, and now we have to do our tax return. So we're looking back to the previous year and we're taking that information and putting it on the tax forms and paying Uncle Sam what we owe him, and we're done. That's tax preparation. It's historic. There's nothing we can do to fix it after it has happened. Tax planning is looking ahead, making adjustments based on belief of what the tax system is going to look like down the road. And not just today. I mean, if we're just focusing on planning for today, it'd be one thing. But we are looking at saving tax dollars, not just today, but over your retirement lifetime. If we can save $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 of taxes today by doing something different, doesn't it make sense to do that? And that's part of our core retirement design. In the tax element, we are looking for ways that we can save taxes down the road, not just for our clients, but also for their children, right? Because that becomes important is how much can we save in dollars over your lifetime and your children's lifetime. And that's the planning process. And that's what we really have to look at when it comes to tax planning.
Phillip, I love this conversation because you make it sound so simple for us. So how do you approach tax planning? I would say with the goal that your clients can spend more of their retirement dollars the way that they want to.
So what we look at is, we look at what does it look like now, right? We know that tax rates are today probably the lowest that you and I will ever see. And we know that in 2026, they automatically go up unless some miracle happens, right? Which it could, but is very slim. And so we know that we're going to see some income taxes going up in 2026. And if you follow the national debt and what that looks like and interest rates going up, you can just visualize that the only way to pay that debt is going to be increased taxes down the road. And so, unfortunately, that's the belief of most of us out here, is that taxes are going to have to go up just to continue to pay the bills. And so it may make sense to pay some tax now versus paying higher taxes later. So we look at things like Roth conversions. That's a big deal. Or even just taking some money now and putting it into a non-qualified account because taxes are lower now than what they're going to be in 2 to 3 years. But it's a process because there's this little fine line you have to walk between, taking too much and doing the Roth conversion and not taking enough. So I believe we should max out our tax bracket. So if you're in a 12% tax bracket, you need to be looking at ways that you can do Roth conversions to maximize that 12% tax bracket. If you're in the 22% tax bracket, we need to maximize the 22% tax bracket. Because those tax brackets down the road are going to be a lot lower than what we're going to see. And so that's the process. And it's a big part of our core retirement design is analyzing where you are, what tax savings are going to look like for you, and what can we do? How can we plan that out efficiently and effectively to make sure that we're paying the least amount of taxes over our retirement lifetime? The number to call to get on the schedule is 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188 to walk through our core retirement analysis. It's you and me, 30 minutes, figuring out where we are and where we need to get to. It's that simple, Danielle. It's only a phone call, right? 863-877-1188.
That's right, Phillip. We like to remind our listeners that there's no cost or obligation to have a 30-minute phone call with you and your team. Again, that number is 863-877-1188. Don't hesitate to call 863-877-1188. Phillip, as we're continuing down the list of creating that 5-star retirement plan, you mentioned healthcare. And so that kind of leads me to this stat that I want to share with you that says, according to Fidelity, a 65-year-old couple retiring in 2022 can expect to pay an estimated of $315,000. That's after tax for healthcare in retirement. Now, that is not including long-term care. So, Phillip, are retirees even aware that this steep estimate, and how can you help them prepare for that number?
Well, let me break this down in kind of my opinion and the way I look at it. And that's the 2022 number. Believe me, it won't be long before Fidelity comes out with their 2023 number and what that looks like. And it'll be more than $315,000, because I can remember a few years back, that number was $250,000. So obviously inflation is big when it comes to healthcare costs as well as everything else. And so you have to remember that big number is for a couple. So that's 2 people. And that's for your retirement lifetime. If you retire at 65, they're expecting you to live 25 to 30 years in retirement. And so if you break that down annually, it's a big number. Don't get me wrong, but it's not as hard to get your hands around as that huge number they throw out there. It is important to understand that this is why we need an income plan that allows for and gives us some inflation step-ups to help combat things like this, that inflation not only does for healthcare, but other items that we have to pay for. And so I think that it's just a process that we need to understand that healthcare is going to cost more and more, and that we've got to plan that and build that into our income planning process.
Phillip, what are some of the options for addressing, I would say, potential long-term care costs? Because that number I gave you earlier, it didn't include long-term care. And so what are the options for addressing the long-term care costs?
So I look at long-term care in a couple different perspectives, right? I look at first, because we didn't really have these 20 or 30 years ago. I mean, they were there, but they weren't mainstream, and that's assisted living. And so assisted living is one step in long-term care. But what I have seen, and this is true, I'm going to say in our local market, not necessarily in the Northeast or on the coast of Florida, because their prices are a lot higher than ours are. But a lot of folks in our immediate area actually can pay long-term care as far as assisted living out of their existing cash flow. Yes, is it expensive? It is expensive. But typically, if you have to go into assisted living, you're cutting out other expenses as well. And then there's nursing home. Well, that's a whole different animal, right? And so how do you pay for that? Well, you could buy long-term care insurance, way back when, and that will help offset some of the cost. There are actually life insurance contracts, life insurance that have living benefits that will help cover assisted living and nursing home. And so that's an option. There are annuities out there that have a long-term care benefits where they take your benefit, their account balance, and maybe double it or triple it. there are different things out there, but let me just say they all have pros and cons, and you need to look at them specifically and weigh those things out to make sure that they are going to make sense for you. And then lastly, if you don't do anything, then you're going to be subject to Medicaid is stepping in to help you out. Now, there's ways to plan for that as well. And I'm not the expert, but I have a team of folks that can help us walk through that process as well. So there are different avenues to take care of long-term care expenses. We just need to have the right team in place to help walk through that process, Danielle.
Now, Phillip, one of the last items that you had on creating the 5-star retirement plan is estate planning. So very quickly, how does estate planning fit into an overall 5-star retirement plan?
Well, it comes back to beneficiaries. Having the beneficiary designations properly listed on your accounts. And, if your estate's big enough, maybe you should have a trust. If it's not big enough, then we need to make sure that we've got beneficiaries on all of our accounts. Our bank accounts, our non-qualified accounts. You can add beneficiaries to those accounts, and you need to make sure you've done that to help bypass probate. So that's the thing. The other thing I will say when it comes to estate planning documents is, a lot of people think of a will or a trust as estate planning documents, and they are. But there's a couple other ones that I think are as important, maybe even more important, and that's power of attorneys. Having that financial and healthcare power of attorney set up is huge. And I say it this way, Danielle, because the power of attorney is going to take care of you while you are alive. The will, the trust, you're gone. You've passed away. Now, that may be a harsh way of looking at it, but the power of attorney is going to take care of you while you're here alive. And that's why I think it's ultimately important that you get those things taken care of.
Now, to recap everything that you mentioned, Phillip, the 5 ways to create the 5-star retirement plan include a reliable income plan, a wealth management strategy, a tax-efficient strategy, and a plan to address healthcare, and also an estate planning strategy. I know you and your team have done this for many years. And so how do you help people build a retirement plan that incorporates each part? And what's the best way that we can contact you and your team?
Absolutely, Danielle. So again, that's why I created the core retirement design to help people design all parts of their retirement process. And it starts with risk analysis. How much risk do you have in your portfolio versus how much risk should you have in your portfolio based on your current circumstances? How close you are to retirement? How old are you? These are all important pieces of that puzzle. And then we look at taxes. What do taxes look like for you today? What are they going to look like for you in 5 years or 10 years? We don't know exactly, but we can make some assumptions and plan out what that may look like for you. And then we need to make sure that we've got that income plan in place. And we need to build it to make sure that we've taken care of inflation. To start that process, give us a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188.
If you have questions about retirement, don't hesitate to call Phillip and the team at Statler Financial Services. They are here to guide you through a successful retirement. Again, that number you mentioned is 863-877-1188. Again, 863-877-1188.
Do you have a retirement plan but would like a second opinion? Call Phillip Statler today, 863-285-3815. Statler Financial Services, 863-285-3815.
Surprise parties can be fun.
Surprise!
Financial surprises, not so much, especially when you're retired, like finding out you owe more in taxes than you thought you would, or having to go back to work to make ends meet. Maybe you'll be okay, but why not double check just to be sure? Call Phillip Statler at Statler Financial Services and schedule a no-cost retirement double check at 863-877-1188. Phillip and his team have seen their fair share of surprises over the years and know how to help you avoid them. Call 863-877-1188 to schedule your no-cost retirement double check with Phillip Statler at Statler Financial Services. Don't let a financial surprise derail your retirement dreams. Call 863-877-1188 now. That's 863-877-1188. You can also visit statlerfinancial.com for more info. Advisory services are offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
Welcome back into the show here. You're listening to the Statler Financial Radio Show. I'm your host, Danielle J. Martin, alongside Phillip Statler. He's the founder and president of Statler Financial Services. Now, we talk a lot about all the risks to your money in retirement, but research from Vanguard indicates that investors often underestimate the risk of cognitive decline. Now, it's a scary risk, and it could rob you of your best judgment, and sometimes it can go unnoticed for years. So with that thought in mind, we want to bring you to our top 5 list for this week. And that is the top 5 scams that you should be aware of. Phillip, I'm looking forward to this conversation today because in retirement, I think sometimes we tend to get a little too relaxed in thinking that we're not going to get targeted.
That's right, we do. And this is a good topic. I think this is good because we've had our shred year. We do our shred event every year, and that helps us get rid of some of the stuff. But it can be hard to talk about some of these things that we're going to talk about today because no one likes to feel like they're foolish or they're naive or they got taken advantage of. So one thing that might make you feel better, though, is that when it comes to those phishing emails, it's actually millennials and Gen Zers who tend to get tricked the most. So it's your kids and grandkids that have fallen for this stuff too. So, they don't actually know everything, and you're not the only one that gets sucked into some of these scams.
That's right. And so when it comes to people making sure that they're not overlooking anything, how have you seen some of these scams or even elder abuse come in your many years helping people with their retirement?
There's been a lot that I've seen over the years. I've seen people click on the wrong thing when it comes to an email and their computer. I had a client that happened to them. They actually didn't click on a link. They got a phone call from somebody saying they were from Microsoft and that they realized there was an issue with her program and that they needed her to log in and go to a certain site. And before she realized what she had done, they had taken over her computer.
Oh, my gosh.
And this was it was like 6, 7 o'clock at night. So remember, older people, even me, that time of year, that time of day, you kind of start to really get tired and you don't think straight. And so that's what happened to her. I've had friends that their parents have got sucked into that scam of gift cards, right? They'd go to Walmart or someplace and they would buy a gift card. So they told them, hey, we need a $500 gift card for this. And it was actually one of those romance deals where they romanced the person. So there are so many things out there when it comes to scams and older folks that we have to have our guards up. We have to be really persistent to doubt a lot of these things. I know we get sucked in because we're lonely. We want somebody to talk to.
Right.
And folks, that is what the scammers really and truly look for, is somebody like that, because they can get their fingers in there and not let go because they've got you then.
That's right. And Phillip, I want to kind of go through and give our listeners the top 5 list this week that comes from the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. Kind of a different source of information, but they recently issued an advisory warning against a few scams. You actually mentioned it, but just listing them off here: precious metal scams, romance scams, fee scams, and then the other 2 involve prescriptions and Social Security, and that is fake prescription and Social Security scams. These are the top 5. In your experience, Phillip, what's the biggest indicator that you might be dealing with a scammer?
Well, let's look at a couple of things. When we look at the precious metal scams, right? it really starts with that spam email or video forecasting the economic collapse or government seizures or claims to know some hidden secret out there that you don't know about. The message is basically that the only way to survive this pending doom and gloom is by owning precious metals, and seller pressures customers to use their retirement savings to buy coins. That's a big deal. Romance scams, like I said earlier, it happens when fraudsters pose as successful people seeking friendship or romantic relationships online. They may contact their target frequently by calling or texting, but avoid wanting to meet them in person or be seen on a video chat. Conversations eventually turn to money and markets, and that's when you start to feel that pressure. Hey, I need this, I need that. The fee scams, when fraudsters convince their target that they can earn unrealistically high profits in a short amount of time. However, the victim changes their mind and tries to withdraw their money, it's too late. They charge them enormous fees or alleged commissions, and there's nothing there. You talked about the other two, the fake prescriptions and the Social Security. We look at those, and you think about the fake prescription one, those are harmful to your bank account and to your health. And so if you're buying prescriptions online, please do your homework. Look for the verified Internet Pharmacy Practice site seal of approval from the U.S. Association of Board of Pharmacies, and talk to your doctor if you're unusually, if you're having unusual side effects or your health conditions don't improve. I can't imagine, not only have you been taken advantage of, but your health suffers because of it. And the last was the Social Security scam. It involves trying to get you to give out your Social Security number. And they may threaten to suspend your benefits unless you provide additional information. Folks, if it's the Social Security Administration calling you, they have your number. They don't need you to give it to them. And so, folks, don't give your Social Security number out over the phone to somebody just calling you. That is a very dangerous thing to be doing. And it happens every day, Danielle.
Right. And Phillip, I'm glad we're kind of going over these so people can get very familiar of what to look out for. So if you feel like you might be dealing with a scammer, Phillip, what advice should you give our listeners? What should they do in that situation?
So I think that one is not so much how do you deal with them, but first you have to understand that you're being scammed, right? And so I think sometimes someone is forceful in trying to get you to hand over money. That should be a huge red flag. If somebody you don't know starts asking you for information that you normally wouldn't give somebody off the street, and they're pushy about it, and that we need to take as something that is a scam. We need to be very protective of our information and not just be giving it out to on the phone.
And Phillip, when we're going to add actually another scam to discuss today, this might come out a surprise for everyone, but the family caregiver scam. This is a tough one, but when you have a relative or an acquaintance take advantage of someone vulnerable, how can working with a financial professional help provide some protection when it comes to this?
So, that's a tough one, because especially if it's a family member, and it's hard to deal with on both sides, not just you, the person that's being taken advantage of, but even on the other side, from the professional side. At what point does a professional step in and help, right? At what point can we? And because we see it sometimes where, now all of a sudden we have a family member that's there to help give care, or we have a caregiver we can see that's taking advantage of somebody. You need to call the authorities. They can help you investigate and get you the help you need in order to get out of that situation, because that is a very hard position to be in, Danielle.
That's right, Phillip. And as we're wrapping up our show today, whether we're dealing with fraudsters, market volatility, taxes, high healthcare costs, or inflation, let's remind our listeners, how can a simple plan, help make sure that our money will last?
Well, I think having a plan is a big deal. And so making sure that we don't lose what we have. And I think we kind of skipped over a little thing here that I want to bring to everybody's attention. And here's just some tips that you may want to take into consideration for helping you be more protective. Never make a payment or give sensitive information to anybody online that you've only met online. You've never seen them face to face. You've never sat down with them. Before making any investments, get a second opinion. Talk it over with a financial advisor, a trusted friend, or a family member. Don't trade in markets or products that you don't understand. And if somebody calls you out of the blue, hang up. These are big things, because what happens if those guys get a hold of you and your money, they can wipe you out. I've seen it happen, and it's an unfortunate situation, because when it happens, usually you can't get that money back. And so we want to make sure that we're doing the best we can with what we have to make sure our money lasts as long as we need it to. And again, Danielle, that's why I created the Core Retirement Design, to help people design that retirement they always dreamed of, to make sure that they're paying the least amount of taxes, that they have the income they're going to need day in and day out. Then give us a call at 863-877-1188 to schedule their Core Retirement Design. And that's a big deal. I want to make sure people understand that having these things in order help you fight against things like scams and fraudsters who try to take advantage of you. Again, give us a call at 863-877-1188 to schedule your Core Retirement Analysis.
You don't have to plan for retirement alone. Get some assistance, get some help. Call the number 863-877-1188. We are grateful that you are listening to the Statler Financial Radio Show. We'll see you guys next week. Have a great one.
Advisory services offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, a SEC-registered investment advisor. The opinions voiced and information provided in this material are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine what investments are appropriate for you, please consult with a financial advisor. Second Half Financial Partners, LLC does not provide tax or legal advice. Please consult your tax or legal advisor regarding your particular situation. This radio show is a paid placement.
Who likes uncertainty? Wall Street certainly doesn't. With fears of a potential recession and partisan politics, there's a lot of uncertainty right now. What will your future look like? Will your taxes go up? Will your savings go down? Here in the Sebring area, financial advisor Phillip Statler and the team at Statler Financial Services have seen uncertainty come and go. Phillip can help you create a plan designed to preserve your finances in uncertain times. And it's not a matter of if those uncertain times will show up, but when. Call 863-877-1188 now to meet with Phillip Statler and the team at Statler Financial Services. Call 863-877-1188 and schedule your visit today. 863-877-1188. Advisory services offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, a SEC-registered investment advisor. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.